Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Let the Women Speak. Thank you so much for joining us after the Thanksgiving gathering that you all have had, especially those of you in the United States. And we want to send out greetings to all the family and friends who celebrated Thanksgiving. And so we were supposed to start this program on the 25th, but because of Thanksgiving, Sandy and I shifted it to today's Sunday in order for you all to enjoy with your family and friends. So today is a very important subject that we are going to be talking about. So before we begin, I just have a few words that I wanted to share with you. So for our audience that are tuning in, thank you again for joining us on this particular episode for Let the Women Speak. So here's my question to our audience, our viewers tuning in. Which one of you that are tuning in either now or later thinks that awareness, action, and accountability should be 365 days of the year? Let me repeat that. Who here thinks awareness, action, and activity should be 305 days of the year? Well, I definitely think so. So nevertheless, today we are counting down day 4 for the 16 days of active, which commenced November. This is an annual public campaign that the usually puts forth. This will lead us into December with the human rights from the 25th of to December 10th. Many organizations, advocates, activists like myself will continue the level of public awareness with programs, workshops, various other activities as we are doing today, myself and Sandy. And we are show support in activities as such. In the past years, many of you know that I've done campaign in Guyana, which is my country of birth. But due to COVID, it's kept us and changed this platform virtually. So I'm also getting used to that. So yet, since the recognition, marks, and celebration of this day, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and 16 days of activism. Remember, it's 30 years this year. We have countless domestic violence, homicides, suicides, and the word eradicate. The word eradicate against the violence against women is actually, for me, it's disturbing when the numbers in so many countries are still elevating. So 30 years marks 2021. So again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are tuning in, I want to thank you again for joining this episode of Let the Woman Speak. Thank you for joining author, who you are going to see shortly, Sandy Mayak, and myself on the Let the Woman Speak platform tonight. And the topic, if this is a sensitive subject for some, please either inbox us, or I have one of my colleagues that are going to be helping me monitor the chat, Bibi Ahmad, who is tuning in from Guyana, and I have another friend is going to be monitoring from New York. So the topic today is breaking the stigma in Indian communities with some of the emerging themes in Sandy's book of The Unwanted Wife. So the topic again is breaking the stigma in Indian communities. And Sandy and I decided to do this and focus this conversation today in this manner because, yes, we know that there are many different backgrounds of folks that are experiencing domestic violence and domestic violence homicide. But we have, our Indian communities have always struggled with the communication with these particular topics. And things have, Sandy and I know growing up in Guyana, things have always been brushed under the rug. So hence some of that theme sort of resonates in the book, The Unwanted Wife. And this is a copy of the book that is sitting in front of me, and you're going to get to hear more about the book and the conversation with Sandy. So before we begin and introduce Sandy to this segment, I want to talk about something that's very important to me and to many of you. So November 30th, it's slated as Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is a day that people all over usually donate to their charitable organization that they support. And I want to acknowledge that today. And we'll be doing that again. I'll do that separately on November 30th. So for those of you who know or don't know, I no longer work directly with a nonprofit as in the past with CADVA. CADVA is Caribbean American Domestic Violence Awareness. My platform, Let the Woman Speak, it's private and it's separate from the CADVA organization. What I do now is I create partnerships and collaboration with Let the Woman Speak for some of my projects with selected organizations. So in the past year, especially during COVID, I've had the opportunity to collaborate with two particular organizations that I do want to support and acknowledge in Giving Tuesday on November 30th. They are two registered organizations, Jihaji Sisters and the Shea organization. I'll tell you briefly about that. But I'd like to ask, in support of the work that I do and support this program, that you assist me in supporting these two organizations with financial sponsorship in the work that they do, in order that I too can continue to do the work with them, making referrals and assisting them with some of the cases that we may be collaborating on. In the past year and a half, I've had the opportunity to work in partnership with the two organizations I mentioned, and I would like to recommend them for Giving Tuesday. Jihadi Sisters is one of the organizations, as I mentioned. They're empowering Indo-Caribbean women. They're empowering Indo-Caribbean women, and their number is 347-201-4931. Again, it's Jihadi Sisters, 347-201-4931. And they're on Facebook, and they have their website as well. The crisis support for anyone who are experiencing a domestic violence situation, the 800 number for Safe Horizons. So I do want to mention that, and Sandy will mention, because she's coming in live with us tonight from Canada. So Safe Horizons number is 800-621-4673. Again, Safe Horizons number is 800-621-4673. Saving Hands Emergency Aid, which is the SHE organization. Again, let me just go back to Jihadi Sisters. Jihadi Sisters are working with women, empowering them in domestic violence situations. They provide assistance, financial assistance. So I've made some recommendations and referrals that they have assisted me with for either medical care, housing, food, and so forth. Saving Hands Emergency Aid, SHE organization, provides financial assistance and coordinate free and low-cost treatment to address medical needs of individuals in impoverished countries, particularly the Caribbean and Guyana. Their number is 929-888-SHEA. Again, it's 929-888-SHEA. So those are two organizations that I'd like to recommend during this program in terms of supporting during Giving Tuesday. And if you can do that for me, I would truly appreciate, your support. So if you feel that our Let the Women Speak platform is bringing in the programs that could provide information to you, family, or friends, please show your support to these two organizations that I'd like to recommend. There are other organizations, so if you have one that you support on a regular basis, you can feel free to do that. But as you're tuning into this program, I'd like to ask you to do that, because within the last year, these two organizations have been a tremendous support to me in terms of the referrals. Another organization, another sister program that I'd like to recommend is Guyanese Girl Rock Foundation with Chloette Harris, empowering Guyanese women and girls to create their own path to success, leadership training. That's some of the things they provide, workshops, community collaboration, and access to scholarship. Guyanese Girl Rock Foundation number can be reached at 646-285-6441. So those are three of the organizations I'd like to recommend as we are focusing on this program and our Guyanese community. So please show your support, even if it's $5 or whatever you can afford in Giving Tuesday. You can get on their website, as I mentioned the name, they have their own Facebook pages and so forth. Again, I have the support of one of my colleague friends, Bibi Ahmad, who's coming in from Guyana, who is going to monitor this, the live and the comments and so on, and provide any information that we may need and referrals. So please stay tuned. And as we move ahead, we're going to come to introduce Sandy Mayak, the author of this wonderful book that you're seeing sitting in front of me, Sandy Mayak. So here's a short clip of the book.
Available now, The Unwanted Wife. The Unwanted Wife is one woman's story about everything other than what marriage is supposed to be. Loveless, abusive, and soulless. For most, Marrying the love of your life is where the fairy tale begins, but for some, it is the beginning of a nightmare. The story is about one bride's journey from a life filled with family secrets, hidden fears, abuse, terror, anxiety, unmentionable and shocking circumstances, and how she used the power of positivity to make life-changing decisions that led to her strength, resilience, and endurance. Take a walk in her shoes as she left Guyana to live in Canada with a family she did not know, to a man she did not love, and how she adapted to a whole new life. It is her brave tale of how she survived the toughest of times, facing a multitude of obstacles, disillusions, and disappointments for the sake of her children, and how, after finding her strength, she was able to find true love. Get your copy of The Unwanted Wife today at www.sandymec.com.
Hello again. My name is Diane Madre, and thank you again for tuning in with us on this Let the Woman Speak episode with Sandy Mayer, author of this book, Unwanted Wife. It's a very interesting and intriguing topic, and we'll tell you more about it. But as you see the book here, we're going to be raffling off one of the books, and we'll tell you a little bit more about it. So someone will get an autographed copy sent by Sandy with this book. I'll also provide one of our sweatshirts with Let the Woman Speak. So on December 1st, Sandy's asked me to remind everyone, December 1st, launching on Amazon is the ebook. So I'd like to introduce Sandy Mayer, the author of The Unwanted Wife. Sandy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Sandy Mack, also known as Shobha Mirage. My maiden name was Mirage. I am a Toronto-based author and coach. I was born Shobha Mirage in Georgetown, Guyana. My father is from the Mirage family of Kitty, and my mother is from Alexander Village. I grew up in a strong Hindu home, but I also went to Catholic school most of my life. I attended Indian Cultural Center at the age of 14 to learn Indian classical dance. I then migrated to Canada in 1985 due to an arranged marriage. Amongst many struggles as a single mom, and you'll read my book on how I became a single mom, I have 4 children, and facing hardships and failed marriages, I managed to go back to university as well as acquire my RCM and OLCM designation to become a senior property manager, senior condominium property manager. I am also the founder of 2 successful business, STCC Dance Academy and Shobha's Wedding Services. I am a very active volunteer in my community, and until recently, I was the director of fundraising at my temple. I'm the recipient of numerous volunteer awards, including the Civic Award from the town of Pickering. So I have 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and I now live in Toronto with my loving husband and youngest son, Kevin. I enjoy teaching dance, volunteering, painting, gardening, and of course, writing. And that's about me.
All right, thank you so much, Sandy, for that introduction. So the book it's actually interesting and intriguing, right? So Sandy and I, for our viewers, Sandy and I decided we were going to make this an engaging conversation for our viewers. So Sandy and I, we have our glasses. Well, mine is purple. For those of you who know, purple is my favorite. So if you're there on your end, make a toast with us as we celebrate International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And moving ahead, day number 4, into moving ahead in the 16 days of activism. So Sandy, here's to the conversation that we're about to have today. Cheers. Mine is my friend made coquito. But this is a glass that I on my finds. So here's to the day.
Thank you.
I have to. So in this conversation. So as I said, the book is pretty intriguing, right? And just the title alone, The Unwanted Wife. So Sandy, as we discussed, we're going to look at this conversation without telling too much about the book, but I wanted to discuss some things, as we said, things that we don't normally discuss in our community, right? So the taboo conversation, especially with Indian women like ourselves, brown women like us. And here's the thing, dating after divorce, much less in domestic violence situation. So those of you who are tuning in, I'm going to check as Sandy's talking about this because she's smiling and she knows why, because we discussed this earlier. So you can join the conversation on this. So we're talking about the taboo conversation about dating after divorce, much less dating after a domestic violence situation, and particularly online dating. Sandy, take it away.
Well, for me, I struggled a lot, and I did have a very hard time finding myself and finding who I was. And after numerous hardships in relationships and marriages, I decided to find myself. And when I did that, I became who I wanted to be, who I always knew there was me in there somewhere. And when I did that, I became more confident. I became more self-loving, and I think that that's what made me decided to do the online dating, because I knew that I had a lot of love to give, and I deserve to be loved as well. And so with the encouragement of my daughters and my friends, I signed up for the online dating. I'm not going to say it went well in the beginning. It did not. I met a lot of monsters before I found my Prince Charming. But yes, I think for especially women coming out of domestic abusive relationships, you have to be strong and find yourself and self-love and care for yourself before you can care for anybody else. And that's my motto.
Absolutely. So as people are tuning in, we're talking about this book, The Unwanted Wife, and with author Sandy Mayak. But we're touching on a part of the book that talks about dating after divorce, much less in domestic violence situation. And Sandy just touched on online dating. And as an Indian woman, also not just Indian, a Hindu Indian woman, dating, online dating, So I remember reading that part of the book. I'm like, oh my God, imagine what people, in our community reading that part, about online dating within with our Indian women. So, so Sandy, in regards to the book, right? The title again is intriguing, The Unwanted Wife. But what are some of the lessons in writing this book? What are some of the lessons would you feel in writing this book that you have gained?
My biggest lesson in writing this book is my therapy. I actually started writing the book not intending it to be a book. I started writing everything that happened to me as part of my therapy to cleanse myself and to get it out of my head, to get it out of my system. So that's how I began writing. And some of the lessons that it teaches is resilience and perseverance and strength and courage and bravery. And I think that not all of us carry those traits, but from my perspective, I got that because I was a parent at the time of 3 young children. And in order for me to give them a normal life, I knew I had to be those things. I had to persevere. I had to have strength. I had to have courage and bravery to be able to leave and to leave with with nothing, you know. It's very courageous to be able to leave with nothing, no money, no clothes, no car, no house, not knowing where to go. So those are things that definitely teaches in the book um, about how a woman can develop those traits because of her children.
Right. So we talked about reading some of the excerpts from the book. So why don't we start with the first part as you begin the book and you start to tell the story.
So why don't I read the disclaimer first?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna pull it up. Sorry. The Unwanted Wife shares the writer's first-hand experiences and a lifetime of observations, discussions, research and study, and education, coupled with the experiences of other victims. Although some of the facts, references to culture, customs, and traditions may be based on actual events, names and events have been deliberately left out for change for either legal, moral, or privacy reasons. It is the right of every victim to identify themselves when and if they choose to do so, and their courage should be respected. Unless otherwise indicated, all the names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents in this book are either the product of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. So that's the disclaimer. And so if you want me to go right into reading a part of the
Sandy,
book.
can you hold that thought before you touch on that? I just want to acknowledge some of the women that are on the live right now. We have Nicole Williams-Peters, one of the women that have worked with me that receives support from the Shea organization for her daughter with sickle cell is Nicole Williams-Peters. Nicole, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you as always for your tremendous support. Bibi Ahmad, who is a counselor therapist in Guyana, who is tuning in with us and helping me to monitor the live and sharing. So Bibi mentioned about self-love, how important that is. So thank you again, Bibi, for tuning in and helping me with this. So Sandy, we can move to that first excerpt that you'll talk
Before
about
we do
from
that,
the beginning. Yes.
I'm not very technical, so how do I share this so that my friends can get on there?
When you see the live, there's like I'm looking at it from my phone, so you just press share, and you can either send it to individual or share it to another page.
Yeah, I'm not getting it live though.
I'm asking our technical guy behind the scenes. So you wanted to share it to someone particular?
Yeah, I want to share it so that way people can comment on my Facebook as well.
Okay, so we may have to do it after because it might be a little difficult to do it right now. Okay. But
no, that's fine.
You can take a look at the share button after, while we're speaking.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, so
I'm going to read chapter 1, page 4, and the chapter is called Fool's Curse. Maya's cheeks were burning. She followed Nadia inside. How can she explain to her mother, Pramika, what was going on? What her own brother was doing? What kind of brother he was? She will never believe me, Maya thought. Her brother was everything to her. He was her pride and her joy. Khalil was handsome, intelligent, and treated Pramika with so much love and respect. He had many girlfriends and was extremely popular. Why would he interfere with me? Maya could not understand what he wanted with her. She was young and barely had any breasts. Besides, she looked even younger than she was. She could have easily passed for 12 years old. He could have gotten any girl he wanted. Why me? Maya continued to wonder in dismay. She used to study herself in the mirror as if looking at a stranger. She could not take the credit for the long black hair, the fair skin, the oval face shape, and the dark lashes over the gray light eyes. These were blessings from her ancestors. But what was the use of it to her if it was so impure? She was supposed to come to the man she marries, pure and innocent, not touched by evil hands, not tampered with. How would Pramika believe that Maya did not encourage him? She knew that her mother would be hurt. Maya had no wish to cause her any pain. If her father found out, he would surely kill Khalil, and her mother would be crushed. She could not do this to her. Maya felt broken. By then she was 16 and not sure if she was a virgin. She knew it never hurt, nor did he penetrate her with his horrible fingers. Yet she was warned so many times by her mother and Nani of the horrendous consequences should anything like this happen. She heard rumors of girls losing their virginity by falling. She was terrified.
Back to me.
Back to you, Diane.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. And again, to those of you who are tuning in, thank you again for joining this episode of Let the Woman Speak with author Sandy Mayak. So, Sandy, that's one of the opening chapters of your book. And without saying much, it's an important piece because I believe it set the tone for everything else in the book. And may I say this, if it's okay with you, and we talked about this one-on-one. In this chapter, when you, as you mentioned that excerpt from the book, I think those people who may have heard that, some may see it clearly and some may not. So one of the things that I wanted to say, that kind of touched on, family incest, molestation that was occurring at a very young age. Yeah. Sandy, if you don't mind, and whatever you're comfortable with, we also have Bibi Ahmad, who is one of the counselors that's online with us now. What was the impact of that for you? Because in that chapter, I remember reviewing that chapter, you never used the word, and like we talked about this taboo, right? You never used the word molestation. You never used the word incest, because you described exactly that. Incest and some form of molestation.
Yes, I described it without using those words.
Okay.
That was not even my intent. It just came out when I wrote it as it was. I was writing it from my heart. I was writing it from my feelings. And I probably still can't say those words. And maybe that's why I didn't write those words.
Okay, so if it's okay, and if it makes you uncomfortable, we're having a conversation, let me know, right? You said obviously it might have made you uncomfortable to write those words. Do you still feel that way?
I wouldn't say uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable with talking about it anymore because that's my intent is to speak, let the women speak.
Yeah.
Right? Give the voiceless. And after people read the book, many women came forward and said, I'm giving them that voice that they cannot speak for themselves because they're uncomfortable and they're afraid and they're ashamed. I'm not ashamed anymore. Why should I be ashamed? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not the one that should be ashamed. So I'm going to speak out. And it's not me that's uncomfortable. It might make people uncomfortable. It might make people that I know uncomfortable.
Okay.
It might make my family uncomfortable.
I understand.
And it might make bad relationships in my family. But I'm speaking up.
Absolutely, and I respect that. But I just wanted to, as a clinician coming with a mental health background, I wanted folks who might be tuning in to understand that when you're speaking about that, and as you read that excerpt, wrote it as well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about incest that happens in families. It could be a father, it could be a brother, it could be an uncle, and over the course of the years, working with women and speaking to women, I've heard countless stories like yours, some that have gone even further, some cases where young women have gotten pregnant through a father or family member, that the secrets have been carried on. So it's important to talk about that. And Bibi said it's part of the healing. You know, I guess talking about it's part of the healing. So
Yes.
this is important. And so, Sandy, when you were promoting the book, and you know, you've done a lot of promotional events for this book outside of the one we're having today virtually.
Yeah.
How does it feel for you when you read parts of the book, like you just did, and I basically said it, you know?
In all honesty, it still does bother me. It still does hurt, and it still does affect me emotionally.
Okay.
And it probably will, for the rest of my life, affect me emotionally.
Okay.
But it will not keep me down. It will not keep me from speaking out or being afraid anymore. And there's lots of women out there that are afraid to speak out and to get help. And that's why we're here. That's why we are here doing this tonight, so that
Right.
we can encourage women and mothers to protect their children, to protect their. It doesn't even have to be a daughter. It could be a son. It could be a nephew. It could be a niece. We need to protect our families and to speak up about these things.
And you know, Sandy, you said something important. So it's not just girls, young women, it's boys, men who have been molested and abused, even by a family member. And especially growing up in Guyana, I've heard stories where boys have been molested, you know, by a family member or by a neighbor. And
Yes.
the thing about it is the trauma that comes along with it, that, you know, goes with you for a lifetime, you know, without getting the right therapy, counseling, and so forth. So yes, men do experience situations like this that occur within families as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that's even more taboo.
Right, yeah.
And not only in
Absolutely.
our community.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we're going to take a short break and we're going to go to the book's commercial. Thank you again for tuning in. Stay with us as we move.
Available now, The Unwanted Wife. The Unwanted Wife is one woman's story about everything other than what marriage is supposed to be. Loveless, abusive, and soulless. For most, marrying the love of your life is where the fairy tale begins. But for some, it is the beginning of a nightmare. The story is about one bride's journey from a life filled with family secrets, hidden fears, abuse, terror, anxiety, unmentionable and shocking circumstances, and how she used the power of positivity to make life-changing decisions that led to her strength, resilience, and endurance. Take a walk in her shoes as she left Guyana to live in Canada with a family she did not know, to a man she did not love, and how she adapted to a whole new life. It is her brave tale of how she survived the toughest of times, facing a multitude of obstacles, disillusions, and disappointments for the sake of her children, and how, after finding her strength, she was able to find true love. Get your copy of The Unwanted Wife today at www.sandymec.com.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen, and those of you who are tuning in on this broadcast live with Let the Women Speak. My name is Diane Madre, and we are with our guest today, Sandy Mayak, of the book, The Unwanted Wife. And we're having a live conversation, an open conversation about themes that are running throughout the book. So I also want to thank Bibi Ahmad, one of our counselors in Guyana, who is tuning in with us, who is helping me monitor this live. So Bibi, again, thank you, and thank you for the tags for the folks that are coming in. So those of you who would like to get a copy of the book, you see the site for the book that you can get a copy. We're also going to be giving a copy to one lucky person, an autographed copy to one lucky person, and the information will be provided before we end this segment. So one person will get an autographed copy directly from Sandy, and another person will get one of our Let the Women Speak with the logo on it for this participating in this event. So again, thank you so much. As we're moving into further the conversation of this topic of the unwanted wife, and this intriguing subject, this intriguing title in itself, Unwanted Wife. So Sandy spoke about marriages before. So Sandy, I wanted to talk to you about this because I think women who might be going through a divorce or ending a relationship have had it difficult, and you mentioned being a single mom going through this experience, the hardship in failed marriages and starting over. What advice would you give a woman that might be at the beginning stages of such a journey? What advice would you give to a woman that might be at the beginning stage of this journey?
Well, if you're in a toxic relationship, it's very hard to see a way outdoor. You might believe that you're the cause of the problem. You might feel that in some common way that you're at fault. But my advice is that you have to stay strong, and you have to stay on track of getting out of that door. And building up a safety net. So if you're thinking of leaving or making plans for how you want to get out of a relationship, and where will you stay, what possessions will you bring along, just set goals to be independent. You don't have to have a career or a way out to support yourself. There is support out there for you. In Ontario, we can call 211, and if you put your postal code into the system on 211.ca or .com, you can get the help there. And at the bottom of this, we'll give out the hotline numbers as well. But my advice is to start becoming independent as fast as you can.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for those words. So let me just go back to the women who are coming in, joining us live in this conversation. So ladies, if you're coming in now, joining us, we are here with myself, Diane Madre of Let the Women Speak, and we are here with Sandy Mayak, the author of this wonderful book, The Unwanted Wife. And we are going to be giving away to one of you lucky ladies a copy of an autographed copy of this book. We haven't decided yet how we're going to do that. We're also going to give one woman a copy, not a copy, one of our sweatshirts or t-shirts. So again, Bibi Ahmad, who is one of the counselors online. So if anyone is experiencing any situations that might make them uncomfortable in this conversation, Bibi is in Guyana for those women who are tuning in. And in Guyana, you can contact her at 621-6111. Again, that's Bibi Ahmad, Guyana, 621-6111. Bibi, again, thank you so much for doing this for us. I really, truly appreciate this. Sandy also mentioned for Canada, the resources that are available. I mentioned earlier, and we'll bring that back to you again as we speak. You can also call 914 in Guyana, hotline in Guyana. Something you mentioned earlier, Sandy, and I want to come to this because it's so important in the recovery process of domestic violence or any particular situation that one might be going through in cases like this. Going through divorce, going through, girlfriend-boyfriend breakup, support is key. And that's something that resonated, throughout your book, Sandy. Can we talk about that? Like when this started happening, the support that you received from your family, from friends, What was that like, especially migrating from Guyana at a young age and being in a marriage and so forth? So tell our audience, our viewers, about your support system.
At the time, my support system was me and one friend at work. I didn't have anybody to turn to, and I did not want to. In hindsight, I should have been more open with it to my parents and to my siblings. But I was ashamed, and I was afraid, and I was embarrassed to talk about it. So I didn't reach out for that support. In hindsight, I should have. I got support because I was removed from a home by the police, and that's how I got my support. And the one friend that I had at work. And in hindsight, my support was just, it wasn't really there. I should have had more support at the time. But when I did reach out to my family, and when I did reach out to for support, I was given it. I was actually in a shelter. I was in a shelter for a few months, and that was my support. And that's where I learned about the various kinds of abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical, mental. I didn't know all those things existed at the time. I did not know. I was very naive and I was very young. But now there's lots of help for people like me, or people like me who are going through things like that. Much more than it was back in the late 80s and early 90s.
And I absolutely agree with you. Resources have improved. Things have changed over the course of the years. But as I said at the beginning of this program, this is the 30th anniversary of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and the 16 days of activism. And, with some of the cases that I've worked on, whether here or Guyana, we're still seeing, globally an increase of women getting killed and domestic violence, homicide. It's all across the board. So again, we still have so much work to do. But I want to, before we jump back, for those, because there are people who are joining us, I want to welcome Minicap. I'm not sure if that's your right name, but thank you for joining us. And we have Sandra Balcaran. Thank you for joining us. Sonia Carut, thank you for joining us in this conversation. Neela Pawaru Narayan, again, thank you. And for all the women that are tuning in, we appreciate you joining us in this conversation. And again, as I mentioned, Sandy and I are going to figure out how to give one person that have joined us a copy of this book, a signed autographed copy of this book, and one person will also get one of our shirts, right? If those of you are in Guyana, it might be a t-shirt. If someone is here in the US, it will be a sweatshirt. So thank you again for joining us. So Sandy, we're going to do a quick break to go back to the book, and then I want to come back to you with the another excerpt from the book.
Okay.
Available now, The Unwanted Wife. The Unwanted Wife is one woman's story about everything other than what marriage is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Loveless, abusive, and soulless. For most, marrying the love of your life is where the fairy tale begins. But for some, it is the beginning of a nightmare. The story is about one bride's journey from a life filled with family secrets, hidden fears, abuse, terror, anxiety, unmentionable and shocking circumstances, and how she used the power of positivity to make life-changing decisions that led to her strength, resilience, and endurance. Take a walk in her shoes as she left Guyana to live in Canada with a family she did not know, to a man she did not love, and how she adapted to a whole new life. It is her brave tale of how she survived the toughest of times, facing a multitude of obstacles, disillusions, and disappointments for the sake of her children, and how, after finding her strength, she was able to find true love. Get your copy of The Unwanted Wife today at www.sandymec.com.
Again, thank you again for joining us. My name is Diane Madre with Let the Women Speak. I'm here with author of The Unwanted Wife. So you're going to be hearing more, and those of you who are tuning in with us now. So I just saw someone, and I'm so sorry to see this. Pauline Ramsahoy, I'm so sorry that, thank you for joining us, but you're joining us from a hospital bed. So I'm hoping that we're sending you prayers, hoping that you are well and on the road to recovery and get well soon. I'm sorry to actually read that, but thank you for tuning in to us. Hope you're well. And Marilyn Hari Prasad, thank you for joining us. So, but Pauline, I'm hoping you're feeling better, right? And you'll be able to get home soon. So, Sandy, we are going to go to the next part of the excerpt.
Pauline, this is for you. Pauline is my friend.
Okay.
I just want to say, Pauline, that I love you so much. And I'm doing this for you. So I know that you're going to be better, and we're going to talk on Monday. Take care of yourself, and my prayers and thoughts are with you. I'm going to read chapter 3, page 42. And some of my friends do have this book, so they can turn to page 42. Take me home, she said urgently without looking at him. He did not say anything. She quickly got into the car, and they drove all the way home in silence. Looking back now, Maya could not imagine how she got the courage to run out of that dreadful place. They got home within a few minutes. Still no tears. Nothing except a dull, numb feeling in the pit of her stomach and a bad taste in her mouth. They pulled into the driveway, and Jason put the Jeep in park. He knew that she could not get out on her own. The Jeep was too high, and she needed help down. He turned to her and said, "Look here, I'm sorry about what just happened. But if you tell anyone," sorry, I'm reading. "If you tell anyone, you'll be sorry. Not only for yourself, but for your family. Do you understand?" Maya nodded silently. She did not look at him as he helped her to the house. No one saw them come in, as they were all in the living room, drinking, playing dominoes and cards. Loud laughter and chatter echoed throughout the house. Maya quickly went upstairs and immediately got into the shower. She wanted to scrub everything away, as if the hot water would erase what happened. That night she did not sleep, and many more sleepless nights followed. She could not sleep. She just kept thinking about Jason's threat. She knew what he meant. Mark was heavily involved in things that Maya was unaware of. But she suspected they were involved in something illegal. Their meetings were always in the basement, and she never paid much attention. That's my excerpt.
Okay, so we have folks that are tuning in. There's Nirvani R. Mahes. Thank you for joining us. And Bibi's comment. Thank you, Neela, for your kind comments and words. We're going to continue to raise the level of awareness as much as we can. Bibi Matt indicated grateful if you can all share the live video as part of the awareness of the 16 days. Thank you, Bibi. Absolutely. Of the 16 days. This is day 4 of this activism. And as I said at the beginning, this would be great to have this 365 days of the year, right? But unfortunately, that's not, possible. And women are still dying. One of the things that I want to talk about or touch on now is violence against women can cause long-term physical and mental health problems. So, Sandy, can you touch on that regarding the aspect of physical and mental health issues? During your journey or experience with domestic violence, did you experience any type of physical or mental health issues? Because I've heard women describe different case scenarios of PTSD, physical ailments. And I'll talk about some stuff in a minute that I recently experienced with a case that I was working on.
Physical for sure. I was physically abused, and I have a broken rib that never got healed. I did not know that I had a broken rib at the time, and it's like right on my under here, and that will live with me for the rest of my life. I can't sleep on this one side because it hurts when I do. And physically, physical abuse is not to be taken lightly of, and mental abuse, like mentally, it's hard for me to talk about that because I never got, and you and I talk about this, Diane.
Yes.
I never got therapy. I never went through that process to get the mental help that I needed. And I know I still need to do that. That's one of my goals that I'm doing. And right now I'm doing coaching classes, which also is coaching me to be in better mental health so that I can help the women that are going through these things, so that I can coach, to become a coach as well. So I need to go through that process of being coached so that I can coach. So mentally, I'm still working on that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Sandy, and being honest with it. Because yes, we did have that conversation, and it's important in the recovery process. And one of the things also, Sandy, recovery process, no matter when it happened, you're always in recovery, but it's the work the ongoing work. So the recovery is ongoing. And we might have some women who are tuning in that might be victims of domestic violence, abuse of some form. And it's important that counseling, and I cannot tell you or stress enough how important counseling is. And I know, again, we're talking about Indian women and families that, this topic is taboo. We don't talk about it. Families don't support the domestic violence situations that occur in families. And like with Indian women, and Sandy, you could tell me if this has happened to you or if you've heard this, especially with working with, with the church, the mandaires that you have experienced, where women have, difficulty talking about it and moving forward, Have you seen that with yourself or, any of the women that you might have encountered?
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
There's predators out there everywhere, and in our Hindu community as well. Many women have talked about it. Many women have talked about, like, even pundits and priests. It's there, and people just, like you say, they push it under the rug. They don't speak about it. They don't talk about it because they're ashamed. They're afraid. Mm-hmm. It's there all the time.
Yeah.
It's there.
And that's,
we just need to make people aware that it's there and that it should not occur.
And this is how we start the conversation. We need to have more of these types of conversations. I think last year or the year before, I actually had one segment, Sandy, where a mother came forward and on the program who talked about her daughter being molested, within the Mandir.
Yes.
And it was a big controversial, topic and discussion. And yes, it's everywhere, but, and Bibi just mentioned the fear factor, you know. So there are issues with this sort of thing happening within communities, and especially for Indian women, talking about it, not being able to, when a daughter comes home to parents and say, well, he's hitting me, he's this, he's that, and they send them away to get married, to live with the husband, and they don't want them to not necessarily want them to come back, just say, well, you're married, so on. They don't really understand the physical relationship. I remember a case, Sandy, that I actually worked on, and Bibi knows about this case. It was actually a big case in Ghana called Babita Sarju, where I remember Babita's mom said to me that, her daughter kept coming home one time, two times, three times, four times, saying that, oh, her husband was abusive. And the mother, on the other hand, coming from, traditional cultural background, oh, you're married, you should go back to your husband. And as I said, one time, two times, three times, four times, the woman ended up getting killed, and the body was found in the backyard of her husband 6 years later. So it's important, coming back to that support that we just talked about, how important believing victims, when that's happening. And yes, as we said earlier, men do go through domestic violence, because I've actually had where men have come forward talking about their own domestic violence situations. I've even seen photos of men who have experienced domestic violence and can be abusive as well. So it's not just the men who and hurting some of these women. So again, thank you for tuning in. As we're coming to a wrap, Sandy, I'd like you to read one last excerpt, and then we'll discuss about the raffling off one of the books to one of the participants that have joined us live.
Well, why don't I go, since you're talking about how taboo it is in our society, why don't I go into that chapter? Just let me find this. It's called The Ugly Truth,
Okay.
chapter 13.
Was that 158?
Yes.
Okay.
And like you said, in our society, our parents were not equipped to help us. And even if they found out about these things, they don't know what to do. So they shut it down, because that was their mechanism at the time. And even for me, my parents shut it down because they didn't know. And I don't blame them, because they don't know what to do. They're not equipped to handle such things, because nobody talked about it. It was not exposed. There was no voice. There was no help back in Guyana. So they didn't know how to deal with it. So I'm going to chapter 13, and I'm going to read The Ugly Truth. Maya sat in the kitchen of her parents' home. It was a bright Sunday afternoon. They had just finished dinner, and although Maya was not in the mood to eat, her father and brother-in-law was watching TV with the kids in the family room. Rania and Daya were cleaning the dishes and putting away the food. Her mother sat on the kitchen table, and Maya began talking about what happened. Everyone was in disbelief when she told them that Raul was still with his wife and children. Maya's mom said, "It's not easy as a mother to see your child go through anything like this. This is so painful. You had 2 unhealthy relationships in a row now." All night before, Maya thought of everything that had happened to her, all her childhood trauma, sexual abuse when she was pregnant with Kyle and Ryder. She knew that her task was to talk through those emotions. and let her family know what happened. So Maya exhaled and everything poured out. Maya finally got up the nerve to tell her mother that Khalil, about how he had sexually molested her for years. I've been fine for years. Now everything is coming back, crashing down on me. I have nightmares every night and I can barely function, she said sadly. I thought I was over it. Now everything is coming back. My trauma started years ago with Khalil. Her mother looked puzzled. What do you mean? Mom, I was 15 when he left for Trinidad, and that's when it stopped, Maya said cheerfully. Why do you think all these years that I refused to call him uncle? For years, Maya had avoided this man who abused her at family functions and gatherings. She would instead call him a family member because uncle is a title he had lost the right to when he sexually molested her. Maya sat on the kitchen table of her parents' home. It was very bright, and her mother looked at her in disbelief. And that was it.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Sandy. And so when we're talking about, I want to come back briefly to a part as we are wrapping up. When we talk about violence against women can cause long-term physical and mental health problems, we're talking about the taboo. It's, we don't have enough conversation about these different things. And I wanted to bring this to the table. So Sandy, I want to thank you so much for being, so frank and upfront and honest with our audience, with me, and the conversations we've had before this, and the work that we will collaborate on as we continue to do this. And you have, as Bibi said here, you have our support, So one of the things that I want to mention, again, coming back to the long-term physical and mental health issues, is a case that I'm not going to say where, just to protect the privacy of this individual, of location and so forth. There's a woman, in the process of this long-term physical and mental health issues, have had, fled from her domestic violence husband, and several attempts of suicides, approximately like 28. And unfortunately, we've had to provide medical care because in the process, and one of the things, this is actually what I'm about to say is going to be, I think, should be a separate topic altogether. And it's not a focus in your book, Sandy, but I do want to mention it because it's so important. When women are in domestic violence situations and with partners who may have multiple partners, there are so many things that could happen. This woman has ended up with, she's not just a domestic violence victim, but she's now been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. And this is very, very disturbing when this is happening. So what I want to do today as we wrap up this segment, I want to speak to the women who are tuning in. If you are a victim or not, please be sure, in terms of your partners that you're getting involved with, whether you're married or not married, to also be sure you get tested. There's cancer also that is another problem, cervical cancer. Make sure that you are getting tested. Breast cancer, make sure you are getting tested. HIV/AIDS, make sure you're getting tested. Please, I'm asking you, be sure. Tell your other sister friends and your family, your daughters, be sure that young women are getting tested. It's so, so important. This was the second case I've had like this. There was a woman that I met several years ago who ended up being HIV, and then it went into AIDS. And then next thing, before I remember leaving Guyana, I had to change my flight because I had to plan a funeral. So this is another situation, and it's so important when you're talking about domestic violence and the physical and the health issues and these things that come in, like Sandy, you mentioned about, the injury you had, and today you're still suffering after all this time, you're still suffering this back issue. So it's very important, and I want to stress and push that home in terms of women getting tested. Be sure you're getting tested for breast cancer. Make sure you are doing your GYN exams. Make sure, depending on your partners and so on, HIV and AIDS, be sure that you are, getting tested for these things. So as we are coming to a close, I want to thank Sandy. I want to thank you so much for joining us and allowing us to share this story from your book. And if anyone is interested in getting a copy of the book, Sandy, you mentioned that December 1st is the Amazon Live.
Ebooks
I'm
are
sorry,
going to
yes.
be launching on Amazon on December 1st.
Absolutely.
Yes.
December 1st, the Amazon launch of the ebook. So folks can get that. Sandy, I wanted to ask you, I know we said we were going to decide who would get the book, but I wanted to, Bibi Ahmad, who lives in Guyana, she is a counselor and therapist. I'd like to see if we can send Bibi Ahmad a copy, autographed copy of the book. So Bibi, you are going to be the one receiving a copy. So if you don't mind inboxing Sandy or myself, address, I actually have your address, I believe. So if you could, so in Guyana, as Bibi said, in Guyana, if you need help, call 914 or contact her directly, 621-6111, or the email is here. So Bibi will be the recipient of the signed copy of the book. And Sandy, your friend Pauline Ramsahoy.
I would like to give her a copy of the book as well.
Okay. Is she in Canada or?
She's in Canada.
Okay. I'd like to give her, since she's in the hospital, I'd like to give her a sweatshirt. So
awesome.
I'll speak to you about that at the end of the program and get her size and so forth, because I think we only have a certain size left, so I may have to order some more, so it might take some time. So I'll speak to you about that. So Pauline, you will be the recipient of a Let the Woman Speak shirt, as a sweatshirt, since you're in Canada and it's cold. And Sandy will be providing a copy of that book. Bibi, you're getting a copy of the book. So thank you again so much for tuning in with us on this segment of Let the Women Speak. And we're talking with none other than Sandy Mayak, author of The Unwanted Wife. So if you can get a copy of the book, don't be surprised. I'm telling you, this book is like the Lifetime movie that we see, on the Lifetime channel. So Sandy and I are talking about seeing how we can bring this book alive. So hopefully we can manifest that, and sometime soon we can be able to do that. So again, thank you all for joining us on this segment of Let the Women Speak. And hopefully you will join us again on the next segment of Let the Women Speak. Any last words, Sandy?
Yes. I'd like to leave those numbers if anybody or a victim or know of anyone who's being domestically abused or in any violent situation or just need help. There's numbers here in Ontario. It's Ontario 211. It's Bell Relay 1-800-855-0511. Again, it's Bell Relay 1-800-855-0511, as well as 1-800-668-8258. 1-800-668-8258.
And Bibi has
or reach out to me as well.
And Bibi has mentioned the numbers for Guyana and the contact for those who are tuning in. I want to mention for the ones here in the U.S. that I actually work closely with is the Jaji Sisters, empowering Indo-Caribbean women. They can be reached at 347-201-4931. The Crisis Support and Safe Horizon has locations throughout the United States. They are 800-621-4673. Again, that's 621-4673. And again, remember, folks, Tuesday, November 30th is Giving Tuesday. I'm asking you to reach out to organizations that you support and providing a small donation, whether it's $5 or whatever it might be, in your sponsorship and helping these organizations continue their work. And as I recommended earlier, if those of you who have tuned into this program before on these segments, I'm asking you to provide donations to Jihadi Sisters who have their Facebook page, and Saving Hands Emergency Aid that provides financial assistance and coordinates free or low-cost medical treatment. These are the organizations that I actually work closely with that help me with some of the kids that I bring from Guyana for medical treatment. I have a child that should be coming up who has a skin disorder called limioirethiosis, and Shay has helped me to provide the financial support to get her a visa, and we need support in order to bring this child and this teenager and other kids up for medical treatment that Shay provides. Jihadi Sisters provides financial support for housing as well as food and so on for women within domestic violence situations, and they provide support for training and healing workshops. Guyanese Girl Rock Foundation provides leadership training, workshops, community collaboration, and young women get access to scholarships. So these are organizations that do work that I know and I can attest to that provide support to organizations. We also have, as you've heard me speak about, women taking a seat at the table. I'm asking you to please support the women in your community, in your township, in your district who may be running for office in 2022. So let's encourage them, give them support to gain a seat at the table. And those things also need financial support, because in order for someone to win, campaigns need financial support. So please be sure that you're looking at the women that are out there who are doing phenomenal work. We ask you to provide support to that. So again, Sandy, thank you so much. And I'll speak to you after we get offline. But we're going to run the video of your book one last time. And again, for those of you who have tuned into this segment, thank you so very much and joining us, and happy holidays.
Available now, The Unwanted Wife. The Unwanted Wife is one woman's story about everything other than what marriage is supposed to be. Loveless, abusive, and soulless. For most, marrying the love of your life is where the fairy tale begins. But for some, it is the beginning of a nightmare. The story is about one bride's journey from a life filled with family secrets, hidden fears, abuse, terror, anxiety, unmentionable and shocking circumstances, and how she used the power of positivity to make life-changing decisions that led to her strength, resilience, and endurance. Take a walk in her shoes as she left Guyana to live in Canada with a family she did not know, to a man she did not love, and how she adapted to a whole new life. It is her brave tale of how she survived the toughest of times, facing a multitude of obstacles, disillusions, and disappointments for the sake of her children, and how, after finding her strength, she was able to find true love. Get your copy of The Unwanted Wife today at www.sandymec.com.